Donald Trump is not going to make life better for the bulk of the people who voted for him. Groceries will be more expensive, healthcare coverage will be harder to get, their jobs will be less equitable and lower paying, their medications will be impossible to afford, the air they breathe, the water they drink, and the food they eat will all be less safe, and their kids will have less access to public education, if they have access at all. The women who voted for him will face losing even more rights. The Latinos who voted for him will face deportation. And the blue-collar workers who voted for him will face lower wages and more hours for less pay in unsafe conditions without overtime. But so long as they get to hate who they hate or pull the ladder up from behind them or blame some innocent immigrant for all that ails them, they don't care. Even if they can't afford eggs under him either, which, by the way, they won't. They still won't care. Oh, and I totally forgot to say that this week's guest is a good friend of the show's and mine personally, Ron Filipkowski. Ron is just a straight shooter, and I have always valued his insight, so of course he was the first person I wanted to talk to. Ruby too. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys, and hang in there, okay? We're in this together. We're not alone. We're gonna be okay. It's gonna suck. It's gonna fucking suck. But it's gonna be okay. All right. Well, Ron and I already started off camera. So this is day 2. I don't even know. A Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know what day of the week it is. I have no idea. It's Wednesday, I think. Thursday. Was it what, Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday. Post-election nightmare 2024. And the first person I really wanted to talk to in the universe was my friend Ron Filipkowski, because Ron, first of all, welcome to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast for the quadruple fifth time. I don't even know. Thank God you are like the most amazing person on earth to come and do this with me so often, because I appreciate your insight so much. Okay, Ron, how you doing, first of all?
I'm pretty mad, to be honest with you. Like, I see, I'm disheartened by people on social media, Democrats who are like deleting their accounts and I get it if you don't want to be like part of Elon's twisted universe.
Yeah.
But like I think of people like Bette Midler, who like follow. I always thought that was cool because she followed like nobody. She followed like 70 people, and I was one of them. And so I thought that was really cool. Millions of followers. She just deletes her account. I'm like,
she did?
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, and so many people are just like, that's it. I'm out. I'm never voting again. I'm not paying any attention. It's like, have you ever, I realize this is horrible. And I think this is going to be the worst presidency ever, but it's like, you're just going to check out. Like, I get like wanting to take a week and get away, like, or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. But I don't know. It's just not in my DNA to kind of like surrender,
Exactly. And you said, if you're looking to host a pity party, you got the wrong guy. I spent 29 years in courtrooms representing people at the lowest points in their lives, like battling to help them turn things around. That's what you do. That's what you've cut your teeth on. That's in your DNA. That's who you are. Like, you're going to have yeah, look, fine. Yes, grieve, be sad. I get it. Trust me. I've been through every stage of grief through this fucking thing, and I bet a lot of us have. That's okay. Feel that. Feel that. And then what I believe is turn that into the fuel that you use. Don't ever forget it, because turn it into the fuel that you use to fight harder. And you're not ceding the space, and I'm not either. Just to fucking give up? What? No. No. That's what they want. And you're not giving up, and I'm not fucking giving up.
Yeah. And they want the tears. All of right-wing social media now, and I've pretty much stayed off of it because I just want them to get some of this out of their system, and I don't want to hear it. But a lot of it is own the libs,
Yeah.
All they're doing is like screenshotting and clipping Democrats crying, and complaining, and that's like rocket fuel for them. They inject that into their veins. So I will give them none of that.
Yeah, right.
I go by the old Winston Churchill adage, magnanimous in victory, defiant in defeat.
Yeah, that's good.
And I believe in that,
Yeah. No,
when you win, you're magnanimous and you're gracious.
Right.
When you lose, you're defiant.
Yeah. And I know, you're right. I know that they love it. They love it when people like me post videos of ourselves emotional or pictures of ourselves emotional. I get it. I don't fucking care, by the way. They're going to troll me anyway. So it doesn't matter what I do or say. They're going to do it. But I also love fucking with them right now because I'm like, yeah, give me your engagement. Great. Swell. I like it. Pay attention to me so that you're not out there spewing all that other shit that doesn't get checked. Go ahead, pay attention to me. Tell me all day long how irrelevant I am. I get it. You follow me. Thanks for telling me 6 times today how irrelevant I am. But it's like I'm not gonna curtail what I post because, I don't want them to clip me. I don't give a fuck. Again, I don't mind engaging with them. And I would be dumping on their fucking graves right now too. Trust me. We'd be all over this shit. But I'm not going to just walk away because that's ultimately what they want. Like, no, what? Why? So you guys can take over everything? No, absolutely not. And
it's one election.
Yeah.
I mean, as bad as it is,
as bad as it
we
is,
have
it's
another
bad.
one in 2 years
Maybe.
where we could take the Senate and the House. So I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not, no, I'm not checking. And the other thing, so that's part of it. But the other emotion is rage because, like, for 3 years, there was a lot of things that the administration did and the campaigns were doing that really pissed me off, that really annoyed me, that bothered me, that I thought they were screwing things up, but I never said it publicly.
Yeah.
I said it privately to people, but never publicly because, again, they all follow me. Like Trump's campaign manager followed me, wow. Susie Wiles. His social media director, Alex Brusewitz, follows me. I'm not going to give them anything that they can use against, other Democrats. So they have never been able to get one word or anything out of me that they can use against a Democrat because I refuse to give it. But now, now is the time when, like, I'm just like unloading a lot of what I said privately to friends publicly because, look, we can't make these same mistakes. We have to learn from these mistakes that we made, and we made plenty,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I've been trying for quite a while to sound the alarm on what I see on the right. You see it much more obviously than I do. I see most of my stuff on the right from you. But they have leaned in so heavily to their content creators and influencers and whatever word you want to use, the Ben Shapiro's, the Charlie Kirks, the Tommy Laurens, I don't know who else is out there in Schmuckland, Tim Pools, even Joe Rogan to some extent. They have really leaned into them where there's very little daylight in between.
Steve Bannon, there's so many.
Right.
There's hundreds.
Right. Yeah. So Marjorie and Steve are like basically like, chlamydia and whatever goes with chlamydia. I don't know, crabs. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's no daylight in between the creators and the people who are out there getting the attention, the podcasters, all those. They're the ones where the people are. They're the ones who are influencing their side. And we didn't do that. And I have been saying for a very long time that they need to lean more heavily into that because, like it or not, this is where people are going right now for their information, for, whatever it is. So look at the flight attendants to tell them that they're fine and it's just turbulence and they're not, going to crash into a mountainside. Whatever it is, it's people who watch those podcasts, listen to those podcasts, engage with that content. They want to see that seamless connection between the person that they support and like and whoever it is, the electeds, the people who are messaging, right? And putting out the messages. And there was a break there. There was like distance between, too much so. So, which was not happening on the right. So I think that gave the right this advantage of having their disinformation and lies, which were perpetual, by the way, obviously, but louder by a measure of 100,000, so that any truth that anyone ever told me had to be disseminated between a bunch of other filters because it wasn't coming directly from the Chris Murphys or the Pete Buttigieg or the whoever at the top. It wasn't coming from Kamala or Doug or whoever. It was going through all these other filters and then coming to me. And by then it's muddy and it's disconnected and people don't feel the same legitimacy that they did on the right. And I think that was one of the mistakes personally that I would identify that I think we can learn from if there's another election to be had. But what about you? What do you think were some of the mistakes?
Well, I mean, to that, I'll just take that point alone, which is, there's a massive difference between the two parties in this area, which is like, not only did they promote their content creators on social media, but they also hold these conferences like every single week. There's a traveling And these are all private entities that are supported by PACs or different groups. And they travel around the country. It's not just Trump rallies.
Yeah.
It's Reawaken America, it's CPAC, it's this group, it's that group.
Yeah.
And they invite a combination of politicians, political consultants, and social media content creators and YouTubers as speakers,
Yep.
paid speakers. And
Yep.
they travel to these events. They put them up in the hotels, your Charlie Kirk's, your Tim Pool, and they get up, they get their 15-minute speech. They get to promote their shit. They, and they get their ideas about this is what we need to do, guys.
Yeah.
And then they're on to the next town. And so Democrats do nothing like that. They're every single week I can find you 2 or 3 Republican events that you can go to like that, where there's 15 or 20 speakers. There's no events that the Democrats have. Zero. The only time that they do anything is, 4 months out from an election. Yeah. And then it's only like your traditional campaign rallies. I just think the Democratic Party is stuck in a very outdated old campaigning mindset. And the Republicans are not. They're in 2024 and we're in like 1996 when it comes to campaigning. And they're using all the old traditional, TV ads, direct mail, all that kind of stuff. I mean, postcards. Yes, some social media too, but they're really, we're just talking about like the technical parts of it, like but that needs to be revamped. Not the policy. I have plenty of policy issues, but just in terms of like how they go about their business. Now it may be that Democrats don't want to participate in this stuff. I don't know. Maybe you could hold a conference where it could be, Eric Swalwell, Gavin Newsom, people like me and you, and then, some campaign consultants, in there. Maybe no one will show up for that in Detroit. I don't know, but we don't try.
Yeah. I think they will. And I think there's plenty of data to vet that out, because I personally participated in Stephanie Miller's Sexy Liberal tour, and I was in the Philly show, and I was in what other show was I in? I was in the Philly show, the New York show, and then I attended the Chicago show. And we had bigger celebrities in Chicago than anywhere. Mark Hamill was there, but we had celebrities and panelists. And it was this mix you're talking about, right? So Glenn Kirshner was on some of the panels, and me and John Fugelsang, obviously, and comedians. But I am an influencer. Again, I don't love that word, but whatever, content creator. And I was on the panels, and I held my own. People participated with, me, I participated with it. And they were selling those small to medium venues, but they were selling them out in places like Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, they were selling them out in larger cities, yes, but like in predominantly blue cities, of course, like LA and New York, but still they were selling them out in smaller venues, even in, I think they were in North Carolina. But there is an audience for it, and I would argue that audience is even hungrier now, because that audience is like, fuck, like, what? Are we losing our minds? What the fuck? Where are my people? I want to engage with them as much as possible. I want, again, them to tell me somehow that it's going to be okay, or that what do we do to fight, or whatever it is. Just engaging with the people that they already trust makes them feel seen, safe, sane, all those things, but also helps them engage, keeps them fired up, connects them more to what's going on. It makes them feel less hopeless and dire and wanting to pull the plug. And I've, again, been screaming this from the mountaintops forever. Like, that's the kind of thing I want, like a Comic-Con. I want like a version of that for what we do.
Well, like a CPAC, but
a CPAC, exactly. And I hadn't even thought of that, because I always joke that their pictures always look like they're popping out of little buttholes. Like, they always put them in circles that look like anuses, and then it's like, I'm Charlie Kirk coming out of this butthole. I don't know why they always do that, but all their little promotional flyers look like they're coming out of buttholes. Just make a square. I don't care. And I'm not saying buttholes can't be square, but I'm going off on a tangent. But still, that you're right. We don't do anything like that. And when the good liars who were on last week travel around in the kind of the wakes of these things, but in between the rallies and all that other stuff that's already existing in these spaces, they saw that it was, in fact, getting through, that it was permeating that layer of like, well, this messaging is up here and I don't trust them, and them. This is stuff I can't engage with because it's out there in this universe. But if they come here and they talk to me and they engage with me, then something is more legitimate about it. And you can see that when you listen to people say, I voted for Trump because he said he wasn't going to put a federal abortion ban in place. And you're like, where did you get that? And that's
Yeah.
not true. But it came
Yeah.
from places that are not me. They're not you, unfortunately. As hard as you try, they're just not coming from us because that's not that our message is wrong. It's that we're in the wrong fucking places.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So that, I mean, that's definitely, one thing.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about this, the just so many things with the campaign, so many issues like the migrant issue infuriated me. Criminal, so many things that Democrats are on the wrong side of. Like there was a proposition in California to like increase penalties for like multi offense shoplifters, like third or fourth conviction for stealing, like extra penalties.
Yeah.
And it was a referendum, and it's California, which is liberal, right?
Yeah.
How much? And Kamala Harris was asked about it and refused, said she didn't want to answer how she would vote for it.
Mm.
Okay, this was, pretty. It was on national television when she said that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the percentage of the vote was for that in California?
No.
It was 70%.
Mm.
So in a liberal state, the Democratic nominee for president is on the wrong side of a 70% issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like time and time again, we go down this road. It's the same thing with the border issue. We're on the wrong side of that issue. We have to have a common sense Democratic Party border policy, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a border policy.
Mm.
The only border policy we have is like Trump is really mean to these people and we're nice. And, anyone who shows up at our border from anywhere in the world will be allowed in, and they'll be given a court date in 6 months. We might adjudicate their case in 3 years. In the meantime, you go wherever you want. If you need, a place to live, we'll put you up in a hotel for a little while and, give you an EBT card for some groceries. And that appears to be the Democratic policy on immigration, which has resulted in an estimated by DHS 12 million people coming across the border into the United States. And of course, what did Trump during the Biden administration? And of course, what did Trump do? He's looking for every one of those people who commits a murder, a rape, a robbery, which
Yeah.
12 million people, you're going to, even though they commit crime at a lower rate than US citizens,
Yeah.
migrants do, it doesn't matter. All Trump needs is 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And he got those.
Yeah.
And what was the number one thing that he spent his two issues? Trump spent like 90% of his campaign money on ads of: one, migrants committing crimes;
Mm-hmm.
two,
Men
transgenders.
Yeah. Men and women's sports. Yeah. Yep.
Two issues.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it's like two issues that Democrats could easily handle and address.
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk about either one.
Especially given the fact that, and I think this was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, honestly, that bipartisan border legislation that Trump had his cronies kill. I mean, I think they could have hammered that fact harder, personally. But I think
why did they wait? Why did they wait
too.
Until 6 months before the election?
Well, that too, right? That too. But there were pieces of it that could have been pulled out and executive actions could have been taken. I'm not
That's
saying,
right.
I'm not saying that could have happened. But the problem is, so often, as we've seen and now we know, is so often you and I have had this conversation before as it pertains to drilling. So often they yield to that side of the coalition that is like, we want you to let everyone in. And I'm being hyperbolic there.
There's plenty of Democrats that AOC wants that.
Yeah. Well, I think she's actually softened her position on a lot of things. I don't know. Yeah. I think
I don't know on that, though.
I don't know on that either. I know.
But there are Democrats, you're right, who do want to let everybody in.
Yeah. And to yield to them, to me, is foolish because I don't actually think, and I think the data bears this out, that the majority of the party is there. I don't think we're on either end of any extreme spectrum. I think that the bulk of the Democratic Party, or even the people who've come over from the other side or the independents we want to woo, they're not on the extreme ends of this shit. And when it comes to our safety and security, all they're hearing is and seeing is what sort of feeds the same narrative, which is the Democrats are in charge and they're just not doing enough about this. And when you have fear mongering, like, they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats and stuff, that stuff resonates. That was one of the most Googled viral things of the entire
The Trump
election
campaign
cycle.
was perfectly happy to
Yeah.
keep the conversation going about
Immigrants.
Haitians.
Yeah, right.
We
And you
played
know
right
this.
into their hands with
Yeah.
that.
And it wasn't it's their closing message by
And you
accident.
know what? In Springfield, Ohio,
Yeah.
you know what the election results were? Because I checked. Trump increased his vote total from 2020 in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah.
So all that stuff
Yeah.
about how Trump was demonizing Springfield, Ohio, they voted for him in bigger numbers than they did last time.
I I know, and I get that, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm just going to put this out there because I'm not going to say that I'm not one of those like dispute the election results or let's don't concede bullshit people, but I will say that there's something so sus, to borrow a word from my kids, about how 90% of all U.S. counties voted for Trump in larger numbers than in 2020. I don't know. That just feels fucking weird to me. I'm just saying. And there's some weird wonky shit in my
Well,
own state.
larger percentage,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't think raw numbers, percentage.
no, okay, percentage, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
still, like it's like weird. Even counties that voted blue up and down the ballot. I don't know. It's just
I don't
fucking
know.
weird.
I
I
mean, you
know.
can come up with some sort of
Doesn't
election
matter.
fraud conspiracies,
Yeah.
or you can say we fucked up, let's
Well,
fix it.
and look, and I agree that we've look, we got a lot of lessons to learn. A lot of lessons to learn here. I mean, I like holy shit, do we have a lot of
Well,
lessons to learn?
let's go to the Project 2025 discussion,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, early on, I was focused on these Trump policy videos that he was putting out on his website in 2023,
Or the ones where
and
he
no
would
one was
stand
paying attention to
in the
this.
dark with the flags behind him. Those.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 And like I'm like the only one like watching these, clipping them, putting them out. Like news organizations didn't cover these at all.
Mm-mm.
And I'm just like I'm covering them because they're crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like one nutty thing after another, wild ass shit.
Defund the Department of Education shit. Yeah.
Well, how about this? I mean, there's crazier stuff than that. I mean, how about this one? Having schools, parents are able to
Oh yeah.
fire their principal, public schools
Yeah.
at any point in time, and you're holding an election every year at your elementary school. Parents are to choose their principal. So a principal of an elementary school has to run for re-election every year with the parents voting. I mean, this is, he said this on video.
Yeah.
I got a million things like that, and so instead of like, so I'm putting out an article today, which is going to be like 85 things Trump promised to do, on video. So the Harris campaign has a choice. Okay, they can take that, which is Trump's stated policy agenda, on his website on video and use those things.
Mm-hmm.
One is end birthright citizenship by executive order.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to say that children born in the United States over the last decade to migrant parents are no longer natural born U.S. citizens, which they are considered today. They're all in U.S. schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they will all have their citizenship revoked and they will be deported. Okay, that's pretty freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And that's something that the Latino community would go nuts over.
Yeah.
So they have that choice. Instead, what does the campaign do? They decide, oh, there's this group over here, Heritage, that has this Project 2025, and there's a lot of crossover, cross-pollination between ex-Trump staffers in this group. So we are going to impute this agenda onto Trump, and they're going to talk about they're going to spend months talking about what's in Project 2025. And then media goes to Trump. Well, Democrats say this is in Project 2025. And Trump's response is, well, that's not me. Yeah. I'm not Project 2025. My agenda's on my website. Go read it. Yeah. And so voters are just like, it's not his. And so why are you spending so much time trying to communicate to the American people what is in this third party group's wish list for a next Republican administration, rather than focus on what you have on video from Trump himself?
to that end, because that stuff, you're right, and we're very visual, right? Because people will scroll by text all day long, they'll scroll. But the reason your account got to 1 million followers, by the way, congratulations on that one, so quickly, much faster than mine did, but it's fine. I helped you because I like you. But the reason that your account is so successful in large measure, not just because you have amazing text tweets too, is because of the video component, because people are consumers in that way. But not just with taking that even off the table, which you shouldn't, because it just uses his own fucking words. And for a minute, the Harris campaign was putting his shit on the big screens at their rallies, which I happen to think was smart. Don't just use it. You can use that, but use it in connection or in concert with the shit we actually know he's fucking done. The shit he's actually done, because he had 4 years in office where he fucked up on every conceivable metric. Like, we don't have to guess. We can say it. Obama was saying it very successfully, by the way, because he campaigns extremely well. He took my economy and he fucked it up. You want to know why gas prices did what gas prices did? Look at Donald Trump. Like, by the way, we have the pan fucking demic, folks,
You
and like
know,
we have data.
when Obama said that a month ago, came out and said, Trump keeps talking about how he had the greatest economy ever. He inherited that from me. He just
Yep.
continued what was happening, and I was the one who cleaned it up.
Yep.
And then he wrecked it in his last year.
Yep.
When he said that, I took the clip and I just posted one line, which is, I've been waiting during this whole campaign for somebody to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the first one who said it a month out. Why is that the case? Why hasn't anyone else made this argument? That tweet, all I said was one line.
Mm-hmm.
I've been waiting the whole campaign for somebody to make this argument. I think it got like 200,000 likes.
Yeah.
Like literally like 200,000, no exaggeration. What does that tell you? That tells you that I am not alone,
right,
in my frustration about why no one countered that false premise, that false narrative. Trump in over everything, whether it's gas prices, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's baby formula, whether it's the border, whether it's Ukraine, creates this completely fictitious false narrative around these things. And Democrats just ignore it. They don't take it on. I feel like sometimes I'm the only one who goes, this is bullshit. Here's why.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, and one of the reasons I think you and I get along so well, and why I think you've always resonated with me, is because it's very much in my lane and my style too. Like, where
Right.
I to my own detriment, sort of, where people who are establishment types say, "Oh, Joe, like you go too negative. You're too anti-Trump. Like, you like the post-traumatic, whatever they call whatever they say that you have, post-traumatic Trump disorder. I don't even know. I don't
Trump
even care.
derangement syndrome.
That's what it is. Whatever.
Yeah.
They say, oh, it's your people are disengaging. They're not interested. Like, they get hit over the head with it like it's a hammer all the time, and you can't do that. And I'm like, fuck that. And first of all, I don't do that. I don't just say the negatives about Trump, because there are a lot of positives. However, I will not about Trump to talk about, which I have tried as well. And there is a way to do it while still highlighting what Trump has done or would promise to do that is bad. And for me, the most successful things I've ever done is to call him out on his bullshit too. Just like you said, like, hey, by the way, I call them Mon Pa MAGA. I've done that for a long time. It gets a lot of traction. He promised to do blankety blankety blank, like end the opioid crisis, bring back coal jobs, bring back manufacturing, build the fucking wall. All of those things. He make prescription drugs more affordable. First of all, he claims that, and that's a lie. But like, he didn't do any of that shit. But Biden did actually a bunch of it. But he didn't do any of that shit, and you don't seem to care. And the media doesn't seem to want to fucking talk about it either. And I will push that message, and I have pushed that message. And my most viral videos have been about that, because, first of all, it's true. Second of all, people tend to like videos because it's something you don't have to really think about. But I would say you're exactly right. Instead of leaning into this 900-page manifesto, fascifesto, or whatever you want to call it, that is Project 2025, pull those things out and yes, say they exist, and that they could be that they very well could be the the framework for what another administration would look like. But you don't do that by itself. You have to take what he's actually saying, because if you want to talk about the Department of Education, which is in Project 2025, then yeah, use Trump's video where he says that principal shit. And it's like, this is a whole nother level of what Project 2025 says. And I think that would have resonated better. But again, I go back to the place that I really think that we really messed up. And I just don't think the campaign, the Democratic Party, understood where they needed to be, like where people were consuming this in the way they needed to consume it so that they would take that information and go out there and spread it themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I just think they were missing the mark on so many ways in connecting the right way.
You know, part of the problem is that neither Biden nor Harris really had an agenda for a second term. I mean, they really didn't have. Part of the reason is because they got it almost all done that they wanted to do the first term.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about their legislative agenda, it was just,
yeah.
I mean, it was like the 1932 New Deal with FDR. It was, there was more legislation passed during the first 2 years of the Biden administration than probably any 2-year period in U.S. history.
That's crazy.
Since the Great Depression, you know, in the New Deal.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of part of the problem. Was it was like, okay, now what are you going to do in your second term? And Biden is like,
finish the job. That's what he
we got it all done. Yeah, you can finish the job. Well, the job is pretty much finished. Like everything he said he was going to do in 20, he already did. Yeah. So it's like, okay, what now? And there were a few things, of course, there are a few things, but, you know, I thought that they really, especially Harris, really needed to come out with with that first interview was a disaster. It was a disaster because, you know, they hide her. I don't think she wanted to hide. They hid her for a month because they didn't have confidence in her to do a sit down, serious interview.
Yeah.
Then she finally comes out and gets her first question. And look, everyone has to know what that question is going to be. Politics 101. It is going to be, what would you do differently than your predecessor, right? I mean, that's like journalism 101, first thing you learn, a question, you know? So they had to know that question is coming, right? I mean, you would think.
Yeah.
And her answer was, nothing. I got nothing for you right now. You know, and it's like, here's what you do. You go to Joe. They have a great relationship and they're friends.
Yep.
I have no doubt that they're friends.
Yeah.
You go to Joe and you go, look, Joe, here's what my team said. I've got to say, you know, I would have done, I plan to do these 3 things differently. And Joe would go, he's an old pro, man. He's going to go, do what you got to do, man. Yep. I don't take this shit personally. I know what you have to say. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. It seemed like the two teams weren't talking to each other.
Well, yeah. And I think maybe they weren't. I think those two I do believe that they have a good relationship and a strong connection. But I don't know. I have heard through, you know, the grapevine and through the people who talk that there has been, you know, friction. You know, it's a very weird scenario. It still is, I guess, because now it's lost, and like he's like, I stepped aside for this shit, you know, and all of his base is like, oh, he stepped aside for this shit. But not between them, but between their camps, there was always sort of this like kind of, but that has pre-existed.
Well, Harris brought in the Obama people.
Well, there's lots of problems, right? Because there were pre-existing Obama Biden issues because of Hillary. Like there's all this holdover mean girl burn book shit that the American people, myself included, had no idea about until we started getting into the weeds of this conversation about him stepping aside or not. And that's when a lot of this sort of like blossomed like a bouquet, where you're like, oh my God, these people hate each other. How did I miss this? And
there's rivalries.
Rivalries.
I wouldn't use hate, but there's rivalries.
I wouldn't have. Some of those people, I would say, really don't like each other very strongly.
Well, maybe it's hate after they force Biden out.
Well, there's
Yeah, I
that,
mean,
but there was, I mean, there was the like his name rhymes with Maxwell Mod. I don't say hate. Maybe they don't hate each other, but it was a little more than just like conflicts. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they're going to be breaking bread optimistically anytime soon. But either way, it doesn't necessarily matter. But it does actually translate, like you said, into that lack of communication where it feels like two separate ships in an armada and not in the same armada or whatever. I don't have a good ship analogy, but it did feel that way. It felt that way at the DNC too, in its own weird way, because I loved Joe's speech. I was there for it. It was incredibly powerful, but it felt like he was trying to make sure to establish his legacy and his efforts because he didn't feel as though they had been necessarily acknowledged or highlighted enough in this whole switch. And the switch was awkward, obviously, for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And I think that there was an opportunity there at the DNC to really ride that joy train and also highlight the distinctions between them. There was an opportunity there that would have been really helpful, that she could have just kept that messaging going. Like, yes, I've been a part of this administration. And yes, Joe Biden and I have been, lockstep on all of these policy issues. But here, if I were to be in charge, if I was the top ticket, if I were the president, if I'm sitting behind the Resolute desk, here are some of the things I might have done or do differently if it's me. And I
can
think
you
you're right.
imagine?
Yeah.
What's Trump's number one issue? The border, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Margaret. Can you imagine if the first thing she said when she got that question in her first big interview was, I think we could have handled the border a lot better. And
Yeah.
here's what I mean, how powerful would that have been?
Yeah.
I think this is what we should have done differently on the border, but we didn't anticipate that there would be this huge of a surge after COVID.
Yeah.
Like no one anticipated all the economic problems that were happening in other countries who were behind us in
Right.
dealing with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of these people turned up here as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't we were so concerned about our own people that we weren't really thinking about other people fleeing COVID in their countries and coming here where we had it under control.
Right.
And she could have done that and sort of like go right at Trump's number one issue.
Mm-hmm.
And instead it was just like, no, I think everything's good.
Yeah, we're good. There's no differences between us. And like, I love Joe and I love all his accomplishments, but that is not a sales pitch to the American people who are like, I don't know anything about you, lady. I don't know anything other than like,
yes,
you I don't even know what brat summer means. I have no idea what this coconut tree thing is. I don't know. You have a laugh. I don't know anything about you. Like, tell me. You're right. And what they did instead, to make your point even further, was they pinned the fucking border disaster on her, the border czar, because that was the other problem. It was like, she's not the border czar. She's not the border czar. No, she's not the border czar.
Should have been like, that's Mayorkas. I have nothing to like. This is not me.
Right.
I mean, that was a huge mistake. First of all, yeah. Just even having her connected to the border.
Yeah.
She was appointed to investigate the root causes of why they're coming here. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, you just don't have the VP do that. I'm sorry, you just don't. You have a bureaucrat do that. You have an appointee do that. You don't have a political person doing that.
Who's supposed to?
And then what happened? The media dubs her the border czar. No, but Biden never said that. Harris never said I'm the border czar. This was a media creation, largely Fox News.
Yeah.
And no one corrected it. At the time, nobody came out and said, no, she's not the border czar. She's just doing this. I think Mayorkas, I said it on Twitter last night, was the worst part of the Biden administration. I think he was the worst cabinet secretary. I think he was a dreadful communicator. And if Pete Buttigieg had been DHS secretary and Mayorkas had been transportation, they switched jobs.
Yeah.
I think it would have been so much better because Mayorkas was horrible.
Not a good messenger.
A shitty job, and he's an even worse communicator.
Yeah. You know what? That's so true. Because what was so interesting about Pete and what he's so good at, obviously, is is going on these news shows, going right into the lion's den all the time, and being so fucking good at dismantling their bullshit, and like not only dismantling their bullshit, but highlighting the achievements and successes and accomplishments of his team and Biden's team. Mayorkas, the only time I've ever seen Mayorkas
He's
actually.
afraid.
Yeah, but when they tried to impeach him, whatever the fuck they did, they didn't.
They did impeach him.
They did impeach him. Well, there was a moment when he was, being questioned, where there was a moment where he talked about his own family. He talked about his family's history, and I think his parents like were Holocaust survivors or something to that effect. There was something in his story, maybe that is what it is, or his grandparents. There was something in his story that was very compelling that I had never heard before, that no one had ever heard before. That maybe if he had sort of just highlighted that out there and all of the web of all of this stuff about how much he sucked and etc., maybe the American people would have been like, oh my gosh, like this is very personal for him, and these accusations that are being levied against him are bullshit. But he's not. I guess Joe's old school, and your cabinet guys aren't necessarily supposed to, in his mind, be good at going on TV. But that's where we live now. And it's not just TV; it's podcasts and everything else. More than that, it's podcasts and everything else. But I mean, yeah,
The only time we ever heard from Mayorkas was when he was sitting in front of a congressional hearing getting yelled at by Republicans. That's the only time that we ever heard from him.
Yeah.
And it was never proactive. He never articulated what our border policy was, what our immigration policy was. He never got in front of the American people and explained what he was doing or why. He would just show up every 6 months in front of Congress, and they would be yelling and screaming at him, and he would just sit there meekly and go,
yeah,
that's not true. I mean, that's not going to get it done.
No, God, no. So we can talk about that. Well, really, we can talk about all the mistakes probably for 10 hours, and we could talk about what we could do differently for 10 hours. But real fast, with the 4 minutes I have left with you, I want to kind of not doomsday scenario paint, but I do want to kind of talk about some of the really fucked up shit that, like, I wake up every morning going, oh my God, oh no, Marjorie Taylor Greene could be fill in the blank, like cabinet member, like secretary of, Department of Education. Well, there's no Department of Education, but you know what I'm saying? Like, who the fuck knows?
Sure.
Kash Patel, Lewandowski.
They'll all be in there.
Steve Bannon, Steve Miller.
Well, not Bannon, but the rest of them will be.
Bannon, I wouldn't rule out him being somewhere in the mix, in the stew. Kellyanne's coming back, maybe, if she's sucks the taint more. Mike Flynn, like, oh my God, like
they'll all be in there.
I know, and as much as I fathom, like sometimes I try to think like what could be worst case scenarios for issues, blah 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 blah, and when I get to that, I'm like, oh my God, like who's he going to put in charge of the Department of Justice? That's going to be Kash Patel, like, and then. And then all of these oath keepers.
He'll be a little lower on the food chain, but yeah.
For the minute, till Trump's displeased. And then where are all these oath keepers and Proud Boys going when they're pardoned and released? Like, what are they going to be, like a private army? Like what does that look like? And then I'm like, oh God, like what?
Oh yeah, they're all getting out of prison. They're all getting out of prison.
That's fucking terrifying. Like Rhodes and all the whatever his name is.
Yeah, they're all getting out,
and they're coming back to positions of some
Enrique Tarrio, the whole crew. He's going to pardon all of them.
Oh yeah, I would say very early in his term, if not like right at the top. Yeah, he needs them. He needs that fear. He needs that militia of his own. Those brown shirts. You know what I mean? He needs the heavies, because what he's probably wanting to do, and I pray to Jesus Christ above that he cannot, which I don't know what kind of mechanisms we have in place, especially if we don't win the House, which, by the way, make sure you help cure ballots, folks. I don't know how we stop him, but if he's got those motherfuckers sitting there going, like, by his side, like flanking him like he's Roger Stone, that sends a message that is terrifying, especially with the Supreme Court that just said, well, if it's an official presidential act, it's fine. It's like, Enrique, can you go shoot JoJo from Jurors in the skull? Because I don't like what she had to say. This is an act of my presidency. She's bad for America. Like, what? What are we talking about here?
He didn't know he had immunity last time. He knows now. Yeah. So Trump knowing he has immunity. Yeah. I mean, I've always been more worried about the people he's going to bring in than Trump himself, because I think, Trump himself is a bad guy, but I think like his attention is easily diverted and distracted, and he's disorganized and all. He's not focused enough to like really accomplish anything himself, like with his own work. So everything has to be, but all these people around him, they are chomping at the bit. They have so much that they want to do, because I listen to these people all the time, and they have a lot of ideas and a lot of big plans. Trump's not that guy. I mean, all of Trump's policy proposals, none of them came from Trump's brain. They all come from these people around him.
Yeah, other than
and so they're the ones that want to get in and do all this crazy shit, you know, and Trump's not going to stop them. So whereas last time you had all these people like your John Kellys and your Bill Barrs and stuff like that, there's going to be nobody like that in this Trump administration.
Oh, no, all the gatekeepers, all the, adults in the room are not just gone, but like you said, they're all driven by their own worst intentions, which he's the kind of idiot who is swayed by the last person in the room, and he's already prone to awfulness and retribution, and he already is a bigot and a sexist and a racist, homophobe, and all of the things, and he's also a traitor. So like, and he's also a con man, and he also just wants to be fucking rich, and he also wants to be a king. So like, as long as they fluff him to the point where those things are satisfied, like, there's no end to the kind of shit that they can do.
Vance will be more the day-to-day president. I think like Trump is going to be like the Queen of England, and Vance is going to be the prime minister. You know, like Trump is the figurehead, but Vance is going to be the one running everybody.
Yeah, because Trump doesn't want to do that shit. He doesn't ever wanted to do it before. He wasn't taking many meetings and taking many phone calls. He was watching Fox News and eating food and fucking golfing.
And going to parade, being honored.
Oh God, we're going to have one
receiving awards, being saluted, flying around on Air Force One. That's really all Trump wants here, but it's the people around him that want to do a bunch of bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get those fucking like Kim Jong-un parades where like missiles are gonna go down,
it's in his agenda
avenue and shit. Yeah,
to hold all these festivals and build new national monuments. I mean, I just went through the whole list of his promises. He wants to create an annual, like an Olympic Games for high school athletes to come from all around the country to Topeka, Kansas or something, to have some kind of big Olympic Games with high school athletes. Of course, what he wants to sit there and be like, like the big man, like, where he's presiding over these events,
like in Gladiator, it's like like Gladiator
he's
games,
like Nero.
Yeah, and like no joke that, and I know you got to go, but like as crazy as these things sound, like he'd be like, yeah, can we flood the Giant Stadium or MetLife or whatever it's called? Like, can we flood that and have a real battle, like a battleship battle? I don't care if there's actual. Let's use the prisoners. Let's use these immigrants. Let's use them as the as the.
He wants to create. He said this on video for like 1776, right? So we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of 1776. So he wants to create this commission to set up games and festivals from Memorial Day 2025 until July 4th, 2026. So we're talking about 14 months of games and festivals and celebrations held every week around the country at different cities. And he's going to be like traveling around presiding. It'll be like Trump rallies, but government funded Trump rallies.
I'm going to puke.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he envisions himself doing in the second term while JD Vance runs the government. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and JD Vance is the one who does the speeches and takes the press's questions and shit like that. While he just goes to these festivals of worship. That's really what it is. Like, let's like fealty to Trump rallies. I mean, it's disgusting. It's really good. We got stay hardy, friends, because that's gonna suck. Like, that's gonna be really, really fucking. I'm still, by the way, not at a place where I can listen to him talk. I was there. I was fine. But after the election in 2016, I went to almost March, April of 21, where I could turn on the volume when he was on TV. I'm back there. I can't do it. I just see him. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to say he's going to be the president again. And then I just can't do it. And I'm like, turn it off. I can't consume
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
So like, yeah.
It's hard to think about him like talking in front of the White House and stuff. That's a tough part, the only the funny part to me was like DeSantis tweeting yesterday that he wants his Surgeon General to be like appointed as the Surgeon General of the United States, like
That guy's
Ladopo.
nuts. Yeah.
And I'm just like laughing at him going, Trump is not going to listen to Ron DeSantis about anything. Nothing.
No.
DeSantis has zero input
Yep.
whatsoever in the
Yep.
Trump administration.
Right.
He doesn't care about Ron DeSantis. He doesn't like Ron DeSantis.
No.
Ron DeSantis refused to be photographed with Trump. Even when they had their little meeting, he refused to let the Trump campaign take a photo of him with Trump because they wanted a joint photo to put out. And Ron DeSantis refused to take a picture with Trump. You think Trump's going to listen to him now?
Yeah. Well, no,
way.
Trump did that when he went to suck his balls at the rally at the RNC.
You can't find any picture of Ron DeSantis with Donald Trump over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
There is no picture of them together.
He's basically Chris Christie with a little bit more access, a tiny bit more. He won't let Chris Christie anywhere near him, but like at least DeSantis he'll humiliate all the day long. But no, Ronnie Jackson's going to be fucking Surgeon General. Like let's be real here. And he's going to go.
Imagine?
Yes,
Jeez.
I can. Yes, I can. Every fentanyl and oxy for all. The Surgeon General and surgeon, by the way, and whalehead decapitator RFK is going to be in charge of my uterus, which is fantastic because
that's more scary to me than anything. RFK.
Oh, terrifying. Yeah. We're not gonna have vaccines.
He's a complete psychopath.
Completely.
Like unbalanced nut job. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good thing he's only going to be in charge of women's health. It's a small issue. But hey, ladies, white ladies, great job. Great job out there, really showing up. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. Also, fuck you. Anyway, any closing thoughts, Ron, before you go on to your next recording? Because I know you're a busy man.
Well, you read my article later today. I mean, it's where I lay out so what I'm going to do is read my article. I'm going to put out on all the Trump's promises that have been made on video. And, what we're going to do is, number one, make the American public aware because they're not. Right. They don't even know 90% of what's in what he's promised because the media didn't cover any of this shit. And the Harris campaign didn't either. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep a scorecard and we're going to show one by one how he failed to accomplish 90% of what he's promised. And, hopefully Republicans will pay for that in the midterms.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think if there's midterms, they're going to pay for all of this in the midterms because people are like, I held my nose and voted for him. I didn't expect my daughter to die. It's like, yeah. Well,
that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened last time.
Yep.
And it's going to happen even more this time because he didn't really have much of an agenda last time. His agenda last time was build the wall and cut taxes.
Yeah.
This time, he's got a much bigger agenda.
And retribution is a huge part of it, and not giving a fuck about women.
And he's pissed off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He didn't go in pissed off last time.
No.
We're now 2 impeachments and 4 indictments later. He's pissed off.
And a sexual abuser.
Talked today about putting Cassidy Hutchinson in jail.
Oh fuck! I didn't see that.
Yeah, he said that today.
Oh my god. That I worry for a lot of my friends. I texted Michael Cohen. I was like, how you doing?
Yeah, Cohen. If I was Cohen, I would leave the country.
I would too.
Because I think he's still on probation.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah.
So they could violate his supervision or something.
They've already imprisoned
they already kept him in jail longer. Yeah, exactly. I know he lost that lawsuit, but
that's the other part. And I swear to God, this promise you to sleep, but that all those cases, that all of that, everything related to January 6th and the classified documents and everything else, that it's all just gone.
All gone.
Makes me, honestly, that of all things makes me feel the sickest. Like that hurts a lot. It's just gone forever. It's not coming back, no matter what.
Yeah.
Gone. Just got away.
And the only thing is the New York and the Georgia cases are technically still alive, but they have to put those on hold for 4 years. Right,
because of the OLC, which is the original sin. Thank you, Mueller.
So whether those would be revived, I mean, he can't pardon himself, but I mean, those are probably going to fall by the wayside.
And we don't even know if he can. That's another question for the.
Then we might be We're going to find out because he's going to do it.
Might be a 6-3 majority with 6 30-plus-year-olds on the Supreme Court if he gets Alito Thomas and if Sotomayor was like out, at least.
Well, think about it. Steve Bannon's under indictment right now too. He's supposed to go to trial next month
Pardon him
for the
again.
build the wall scam.
I thought he pardoned him for that.
Huh?
I
No,
thought
he pardoned him, but then they re-indicted him for like different stuff related to that.
Oh, Jesus.
And so he'll get pardoned again. How
like
about like George Santos is supposed to go? He's supposed to go to prison. He pled guilty.
Bob Menendez.
He's supposed to be going to prison.
Yep.
So I think George Santos is going to get a pardon. That's why he's so cocky on social media.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be going to prison next month, but
he's going to get pardoned.
And he might go for a month and get right out.
Mark my word, Menendez will get pardoned because he pardoned his partner, by the way. And Menendez will get a cushy job in some foreign policy.
And by the way, Joe's going to pardon Hunter.
I don't think so.
I think so. I think he'll wait until the end. But
well, we'll see.
We'll see because I think he can more than justify it because that was so political. It was just nakedly political.
I guess he's got nothing to lose. I mean, what does he have to lose? Well, Ron, get to your next recording.
And I got another one.
Thank you so much for this. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Thanks for all of it. Okay, stay strong. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.